Alright, hey guys, welcome back to another stream. So, picking up where I left off previously, gonna continue reading Chip War and take some notes. Maybe dive a little bit deeper into the technical aspect of how this works. But I was just at Five Guys actually earlier eating a burger, and I was reading through some of the chapters here. I think I got to part 2, or almost to part 2, and there's some interesting stuff that happens post, I think, 1960. All of this stuff that we've kind of written down here, I think all of this really happens in the 60s. Mid 60s, I think things start to pick up a little bit, and by the 1970s, these integrated circuits have really taken off and taken over the world, almost. So I think maybe what I want to do here, I think I'll probably continue writing down some chapter notes. So I'll do that. Instead of reading more, I'm going to kind of consolidate everything and so heading 1. Call this the circuitry, the American world. I might put on one of these. Oops. There we go. Okay. Circuitry of the American world. So this is part 2. Okay, and then let's do heading chapter 7. We have Soviet Silicon Valley. Chapter 8, copy it. Chapter 9, the transistor salesman. Chapter 10, transistor girls. Chapter 11, we have precision strikes. Okay, so this is actually a really interesting one. It's called supply chain statecraft. And then chapter 13, we have Intel's revolutionaries. Okay, so let's try to go back a little bit into, I think a big one is mortars and mass production. So J. Lathrop. So J. Lathrop, I think this is page, so this is page 23. All right, I'm gonna jump my handwriting in. It's kind of annoying, it just keeps falling. Okay, so let's see here. J. Lathrop, page 23. Joins Texas Instruments in 1958. Helps invent photolithography. So let's take a look. Techniques for, oh, what's good, Andre? Yes, 2 episodes in one day. We gotta understand how these chips work. Also, the place looks beautiful in Seattle, I have to say. It seems like photolithography, so it's something that's been made before by this J. Lathrop guy, and I think his research partner, James Nall, at the National Bureau of Standards. So these guys were for semiconductor manufacturing, right? So what is photolithography? Seems like you're printing something with light. Now, I don't know how that actually works. It seems pretty complex. Yeah, I mean, what the hell is going on here? Okay, there are some terms though that we could try to define. So there's something called a substrate, an underlying substance or layer. Okay. Photolithography terms. All right, so substrate. This is the underlying substance that the light is printing on. Okay. Is making an imprint on. Okay, I think that makes an imprint on. This is commonly silicon when dealing with semiconductor manufacturing. A silicon wafer. So I remember we defined a silicon wafer just as a thin slice of pure silicon that's usually round. And the reason why we call things chips today is because they're just a chip. You chip off a piece of the silicon wafer and then you use that piece of silicon to then create an integrated circuit. So now that terminology is kind of all coming together. Okay, so substrate is one thing. Let's see what else the book says. There's also a term, man, I forgot what it's called. Discrete transistors or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. I think I'll probably, when I stumble upon it, I'll try to search it up. I'm also looking for my phone. Okay, found the pencil. Okay, so let's see. So it seems like this is actually not made. Helps. He invents in. Okay. In 1952. Joins Texas Instruments in 1958. All right. So let's see, germanium. I guess germanium. So germanium and silicon. These guys are call these. Let's see, transistors. Maybe I add integrated circuits. Integrated circuits. Actually, this is a nice picture. So germanium could be I guess this is a periodic element. This is what it looks like. And this is its atom structure. Okay, I don't fully remember exactly how stuff works. Might have to do some refreshing on my chemistry stuff. Yeah, but let's see. So germanium, semiconductor elements. There we have germanium And then also silicon. So these actually do look very similar. Germanium. Belmont Metals. Silicon. Right, and then we have silicon atom. Oops. Why do these look different? This is actually pretty helpful. Okay, so this is maybe a good diagram of the two big semiconductor elements that were used back in the day. I think this is in the 1960s. So I think the number of electrons here, so there's 14 electrons, 32 electrons for germanium, 14 electrons for silicon. But there's 4 electrons out in its outer shell. I think this is the valence shell. And there's also 4 electrons in its valence shell too for germanium. So valence shell, if I'm not mistaken, so properties, valence shell has 4 electrons. I think this is the outermost electron ring, valence electron, outermost shell of the atom. Wait, let's see, valence shell. So each element has, both of these elements have 4 valence electrons. So valence electrons are the electrons that exist in the outermost shell of the atom. Okay, so do germanium and silicon have 4 valence electrons. Carbon, silicon, and germanium. Okay. Yeah, okay, that's good to know. We're building here some of the chemistry knowledge behind the semiconductor stuff. So photolithography, all right, printing with light, substrate. So wax semiconductor production. I wonder if there's videos on this. It's hard to... wax. Let's see. Okay, gotta be honest, I have no idea what is going on here, but I just see some black particles moving from. I don't even know what this is, to be honest. It's like a little hose. Is there any comments? There's no comments. I'll give it a like. Alright. Thin film processing. Yeah, this could be interesting, some of these videos. They are pretty long though. I see this one has a decent amount. I'm going to probably save this. Create new playlist. Semiconductor. Okay. Where light struck the layer of photoresist, the chemical structure was altered, allowing it. Okay, so. There's this concept, are there wires on integrated circuits? Yeah. Why do... No, what even is this? Intel 4004. So this is the first microprocessor, I think. Okay. Doping. Yeah, that seems like it's a big thing. So I'm gonna be at this Reddit article. Seems interesting. So if negative photoresist is used, or positive photoresist, that solutions.
Slide, the second slide. For anybody who just walked in, I'm Todd Fernandez. I have a handle in the program. I don't care. I just really didn't want my name associated with this on the web. So my name's Todd Fernandez. I'm here to talk about semiconductors. There's a QR code on here if you want to follow along on your iPad, Android device, or other. You can go ahead and click that. It'll take you to a Dropbox, and you can follow along on the slides. So I called it inseparable from magic. That's I'm an engineer. I kind of find the term magic a little bit insulting when people refer to my work or the work of other engineers, because it's not magic. It's sweat and blood and mental stability that goes into these things to make them work. I use the term inseparable from magic because from work.
Yeah, maybe I might spend a few minutes watching this.
Working in the industry, I can tell you that's a fairly standard response. What happened? We don't know. Why does it work? It's magic. And that's from the people who know. So, inseparable from magic. What you're looking at here is the first ever solid-state transistor, Bell Labs, 1947. If you haven't read the book, The Idea Factory, it talks about this in detail. It's incredible. The
Idea Factory. Oh man, it's a lot of
disclaimers. Read the disclaimer. I'm going to talk about something else. I'm going to leave time at the end for questions. If you have a question, everything has a slide number in the bottom right, which we can actually see, which is fantastic. Please reference the slide number. It helps me out with answering your question in a little more detail. At the end, if you missed the download link, I have the download link. I hate to make the federal government look silly in terms of IP security, and like I said, I like this industry to work for. So, this is me. I have a degree in mechanical engineering. I've worked in 4 different fabs. I've worked in a wide range of weird things, from microlithography to micrometrology to thin films deposition to what we call yield analysis. I've worked in a range of things from academic research to development to production. That's me at work. So I blurred out my badge. I shouldn't have that picture. That's a good story. So what are we talking about? Let's do a little statistics first. This is a human hair, scaled up. 40 micron diameter human hair. That's a fairly average human hair. In 1971, Intel released the Intel 4004. That was a 10 micron device line size. So that's a scaled 10 micron. That's in 1971. Here's 1990, 800 nanometers. Here's 2000, 130 nanometers. Can everybody see that dot? If you can't see that dot, raise your hand. Okay. There's a dot there. That's 2010, 2 years ago. 32 nanometer is in relation to a human hair. I did the math at one point. You can put something like a gigabyte of information nowadays. You could store a gigabyte in a human hair.
Oh my God.
With modern transistor technology. So store a gigabyte in a human hair.
Alright, I'm going to take a picture of this. Okay, so apparently this guy's claiming you could store a gigabyte of human hair in this, and I guess using 2010's technology. So I'm going to actually probably add this link to it as well. Let's see. Oh, shoot. Alright, screw it. I'll just do it like that. Okay, let's kind of describe this. So this diagram represents the size of transistors over time. The blue circle represents, I think, the diameter of a human hair. The red dots are all transistors that were made by Intel and other companies. The speaker, who's the speaker again?
Slide, the second slide. For anybody who just walked in, I'm Todd Fernandez.
Todd Fernandez. So Todd Fernandez says that so I think this is in 2010. You could fit a gigabyte's worth of memory inside a human hair, which is crazy.
I have a handle in the program. I don't care. I just really didn't want. So this is the basics. That's 2010, 2 years ago.
This is okay. This is let's see, 0 to 55 in the video.
32 nanometer is in relation to a human hair. I did the math at one point. You can put something like a gigabyte of information nowadays. You could store a gigabyte in a human hair with modern transistor technology. So this is the basics. Who do we know how a transistor works? So from a semiconductor solid state physics standpoint, there are 6 major parts to a transistor. You have a substrate, that is the silicon wafer, the background, kind of the bottom of it. That's what everything is built on top of. You have a source and a drain. Those are effectively, think of them as the terminals. They're where you plug in the wires. One's positive, one's negative. What we do is we put impurities, dopants, things like phosphorus, arsenic, other stuff, I'm just going to say other stuff, into the surface of the wafer, changing the electrical characteristics of it so that we can make it more or less electrically conductive, electrically resistive, things like that. On the top, we have a gate insulator. That insulates the gate material, which is where we flow the current, that is the on and off switch, from the body of the transistor here, okay? The last thing on top is the gate itself. What happens in a transistor is we flow electricity through the gate. That generates a field. That enables us to turn the transistor on and off.
Whoa, okay. There are a lot of kind of words he threw out. Don't fully understand everything, but I will try to see here. So this is a basic form of a transistor. Substrate is the underlying material, underlying semiconductor material, the source and drain. I think these are, he said, so I'd assume red is negative charge and drain is positive charge. I don't even know what that means. Let's see. What does positive and negative charge mean? I guess electrons can be positive or negative, right? I don't know. Oh. Oh my god. Okay. That actually is very helpful. So negative charge means an object has more electrons than protons. Man, I totally forgot what this is from my chemistry class in high school. Electrons have a negative charge and protons. Oh my god, you're right. So I just said electrons have a positive and negative charge, but what am I even talking about? But what does that even mean though, right? Because what even is a charge? What is a charge? Oh man, okay, that's great. We have to take the integral over the net outward current. Change in time. Well then, what is the current? Oh, fuck. Electromagnetic field. Object has more protons than electrons. It's a physical property of matter that causes it to experience a force when placed in an electromagnetic field. Electric charge can be positive or negative. Like charges repel each other, and unlike charges attract. So this is, I guess, what is meant by opposites attract, like charges. Okay. Maybe I'll add a section here called electricity, physics 101 plus chem 101. So physical quantity. Okay, so I guess this is the most basic thing we could even think of. It's a field. And what that is, it's a physical quantity. Let's go deep. How deep can we go? Okay, expresses a value. So I guess these are like the units. These are the quantities that we express things in. So like meters or pounds, liters, stuff like that. You're trying to quantify some type of matter, I guess. So represented by a scalar, vector, or tensor that has, I'm still confused about tensors, but I'll skip that for now. It has a value for each point in space and time. For example, on a weather map, the surface temperature is described by assigning a number to each point on the map. Okay, a vector field. Physics. Are they for real? Okay, this guy's going off. Okay. Damn, this is a long ass discussion. Alright, well, let's see what the most upvoted comment is. Okay. Favorite metaphor for you. Yeah, man. Maybe if I have time this summer, I'll dive into the field of quantum mechanics, but it might be a bit stretched. This is some crazy computer science metaphor. So can confirm or deny this, but if I'm understanding this metaphor correctly, I think a physical theory would be akin to the API documentation. I'm trying to understand ourselves and document it. So the temperature, it seems like the temperature, as you change, z is equal to the changing effect, so the derivative, the rate of change of the temperature with respect to changing z times z minus z0, okay. Okay, so it seems like this is actually an interesting way of fields are a central concept to physics and the world mathematics at a high level. A field is a function that maps that returns a value from a point in space. Really great stack exchange. Okay. So discussion. a field is a function that returns a value from a point in space, right? Example of a field can be temperature. So what was the whole point of this? This was related to the idea of charge, right? And so charge, I think, relates to the idea of an electromagnetic field. Electromagnetic field. Is a type of field that combines the effects of an electric field and a magnetic field. Michael Faraday's iron filings experiment. So electric charge can be positive or negative. Like charges repel each other and unlike charges attract each other. So what is an electric charge? Let's see if we can.
The shock you get from a doorknob, that trick you used to do with a balloon to make your hair stick up, or of course a lightning strike, they're all governed by the same principle: static electricity. Static electricity occurs when an object obtains a net amount of positive or negative electric charge, creating an imbalance that wants to be returned to equilibrium. Its effects aren't always as dramatic as lightning though. Let's take two pieces of tape that are both stuck to a table. If you rip them both off the table and try to stick them together, that should be easy enough, right? But it turns out that they repel one another. But try this: stick one on top of the other, rip the pair off the table, then separate the pieces. They're no longer repelled, now they're attracted to one another. In the first scenario, both pieces of tape stole negative charges from the table. Rip the pair off the table, both off the table, and stick as lightning though. Let's take two pieces of tape that are both stuck to a table. If you rip them both off the table and try to stick them together, that should be easy enough, right? But it turns out that they repel one another. But try this: stick one on top of the other, rip the pair off the table, then separate the pieces. They're no longer repelled, now they're attracted to one another. In the first scenario, both pieces of tape stole negative charges from the table, and since like charges repel, the pieces moved away from one another. In the second scenario, one piece of tape stole negative charges from the other, leaving the pieces with opposite overall charges, making them attract. Our study of electricity begins here, with basic observations about electric charges that hundreds of years ago sparked the imagination and innovation that changed our world forever. To understand electricity, you should start with an atom. Atoms contain charged particles, positive protons and negative.
So like charges repel, opposite charges attract.
Electrons, and generally there's an equal number of each, meaning the net electric charge of the atom is zero. It's electrically neutral. In solid materials, protons stay fixed, but some electrons are free to move around. These moving electrons are called free electrons. They reside in the atom's outer shell as valence electrons. And in solid materials, protons stay fixed, but some electrons are free to move around. These moving electrons are called free electrons. They reside in the atom's outer shell as valence electrons, and are easily plucked off and carried around when acted upon by an outside force. How easy it is for electrons to move around depends on the material, and we describe the materials in the same manner that we do for heat transfer, with conductors and insulators. Materials that are conductors, like copper, let free electrons move freely throughout the solid, while insulators, like wood, hold on to them tightly, limiting their flow. So we've got insulators and conductors with free electrons moving around in them. But what causes these charged particles to move in the first place? The answer is an imbalance of electrical charge, when some part of an object has a different number of free electrons than another part. When we talk about an object having an overall negative charge, we mean that it has too many electrons. And when we talk about an object having an overall positive charge, we mean it's missing free electrons. This imbalance can be created and resolved in lots of different ways. Say you have a glass rod that's electrically neutral, and you rub it with a cloth. That physical interaction causes electrons to hop onto the cloth, leaving the rod with an overall positive charge. This is called charging by friction. Both the cloth and the rod began with a neutral charge, but after friction the rod has a net positive charge. But whether the rod ends up with a net positive or negative charge depends on the materials that you use. The ancient Greeks actually rubbed fur against amber and discovered that the amber would then attract hair and feathers. Today we understand that the fur stole electrons during the process, giving the amber an overall positive charge, just like the glass rod. Now it's important to note that no new charges were created during this process. The overall charge between the two objects is still zero. This is known as the law of conservation of electric charge. It says that you can never create a net electric charge. Instead, charge can only move from one place to another.
Law of conservation of electric charge.
Now if we bring our positively charged glass rod in contact with another neutral rod, some of the negative charge, that is some electrons, will jump from the neutral rod to the positive one until both objects have the same distribution of charge. So now we have two rods that are both slightly positive. This is called charging by contact. When the two objects touched, charges move between them. Okay, so charges can move when different materials.
So there's charges by friction, charges by contact.
Materials touch each other, either through friction or simple contact. But materials don't actually have to touch in order for their electrons to get all rearranged. Say you bring a positively charged rod close to a metal conductive rod, then the electrons in part of the metal rod will be drawn towards the positive rod. Now the side with more electrons has a negative charge, leaving the other side of the rod with fewer electrons and a positive charge. Do you know what we've done here? We've polarized the metal rod. We've redistributed the charge in order to create an imbalance of charge within an object that's still electrically neutral. Now imagine that we slice the metal rod right down the center. It still hasn't touched the positive rod, but since we split it while an imbalance was present, we're left with one positive side and one negative side. This process is known as charging by induction, creating a net charge without contacting another object. Now if a charged object is connected to a much larger neutral conducting object, then the net charge gets redistributed so that the smaller object loses most of its net charge. How large an object are we talking about exactly? Well, How about Earth? The Earth's surface is a fairly good conductor in most places, and for our purposes, it can be considered neutral. So connecting a charged object to the ground creates a way for the charge to leak into the Earth, rendering the object electrically neutral. This is known as grounding. So let's say we repeat the previous experiment, but we bring a negatively charged rod close to our neutral one. The neutral rod becomes polarized, with a net positive charge close to the charged rod and a negative charge on the opposite side. But if we ground the metal rod, the negative charges repelled by the charged rod now have a place to go. The Earth. The negative charges scurry away, leaving the metal rod with an overall positive charge. Now, if we sever the connection to the ground, our rod remains positively charged. This process required no contact between the rods, only a connection to the ground. Okay, so we've talked about how opposite charges attract and like charges repel, but how do we quantify those interactions in terms of equations and units? Well, we'll want to find the force on charged particles in newtons. But to calculate the number of newtons, we'll first need to measure the charge, denoted by Q, in units called coulombs. Since objects can be positive or negatively charged, Q can have both positive and negative values. For example, one electron has a charge of negative 1.6 times 10 to the negative 19th coulombs. That means there are 6.24 times 10 to the 18th electrons for every negative coulomb. This value, the charge of a single electron in coulombs, is known as the elementary charge, and it's denoted with a lowercase e. We'll use this notation a lot when talking about protons and electrons, since protons have a charge of positive e and electrons of negative e. Now that we have a way to measure the charge, we can calculate the force between particles. And the equation we use is very similar to the one we use with gravitation. It's just that instead of using kilograms to find newtons, here we're using coulombs to...
I have to say, this is an interesting video. I'm not entirely sure if it does help me understand kind of the underlying idea behind what is a charge. I guess probably at a high level, just think about it as some energy that protons or neutrons radiates. So going back to this video,
the gate itself. What happens in a transistor is we flow electricity through the gate. That generates a field that enables us to turn the transistor on and through the gate. The last.
So gates, material, and it's like 4 minutes. Gates, insulator, okay. How the transistor works at a high level is
on the top, we have a gate insulator. That insulates the gate material, which is where we flow the current that is the on and off switch, from the body of the transistor here, okay? The last thing on top is the gate itself. What happens in a transistor is we flow electricity through the gate. That
electricity flows through the gates, which generates a field. Then that field
generates a field that enables us to turn the transistor on and off.
Allows the transistor to be turned on and off.
Okay, so here's what it looks like in practice. This is a research transistor. This is not anything you will ever see in manufacturing. So what you're seeing here are electrical test pads, so that anyone who wants can connect to the transistor. So that kicks down into contacts, which are where they actually access things, a source, a drain, and a gate. So if we add power to this with an electrical bias across these two, adding power here connects these two. All right? So here's how it looks in, I guess, Microsoft Art. As we apply a positive voltage, we begin to form what's called a pinched channel. That's electricity beginning to flow across the transistor. As we continue to turn it more and more on and off become relative, which is fun. This is what happens. We actually begin to fully form an on transistor. The parlance that is used in the industry is electrons and holes. So electrons go this way, electron holes or the absence of electrons go that way. We don't talk about, if you think back to high school chemistry, you remember valence electrons. A lot of materials have either one or two elements in their outer valence. A lot of materials have one or two holes in their outer valence. We deal in trading electrons for holes as they move across. That's how we create kind of flow. So,
electron flow. Electron holes.
First thing that's going to break your mind, transistors are not digital. So we make digital logic circuits out of them, but they're not digital. This is what the electronic response curve of a transistor looks like. So on the top, on the y-axis here, you have effectively current that is flowing across the transistor, and on the bottom, you have how much voltage we're applying to the gate. There are 4 things you should keep an eye on here. This is off. If you notice, we're looking at, this is a log scale, so 1 to the negative second, 1 times 10 to the negative second, that's not 0. On is kind of a nebulous state where it's mostly on. So we start to talk about things in terms of the threshold voltage. The threshold voltage is where we get that shoulder, where things start to turn on, where things start to behave like they're on and not off. And everybody talks about power and heat in transistors and computer chip usage. This is effectively the majority of what they're talking about. They're talking about leakage. The fact that our off state is not as off as it could be, which is a term that kind of messed with me for a while when I started in this industry. Off being offer is very, very important. So, basics of construction. We're going to talk through some of the tools, some of the technology they're using to manufacture these. Then we're going to get into what the transistors actually look like nowadays. So, first of all, a fab. Everybody knows at least what a fab is. You guys probably think of them. Bunny suits, Intel commercials, lots of stuff. This is what a fab actually looks like. It's about 4 to 5 levels. This is a picture of Samsung's brand new, spanking new fab in Austin, Texas. That nowadays they're using what's called 300 millimeter wafers. We'll talk about that next slide. But they're usually, modern fabs are about 300,000 square feet of manufacturing space. So that's large. Now consider they're what's known as a class 1 clean room. Class 1 clean room means there is 1 half micron particle, 1, per cubic foot. I didn't mix units. You can talk to ISO about that. So as a reference, everybody's familiar with operating rooms. Operating rooms are class 10,000. So if you want to have surgery, this is probably a better place. So wafers. Wafers are cool. These are what we manufacture on. They are pulled. They are actually a single crystal. Everything.
This is cool. So wafers are 99.99%. So this is, I think, oops, behavior. Behavior of transistor. Note that transistors are not always turned off.
As off as it could be, which is a term that kind of messed with me for a while when I started in this industry. Off being offer, what transistors actually look like. They actually look in digital space. They're half micron particle, 1, per cubic foot. I didn't mix units. You can talk to ISO about that. So as a reference, everybody's familiar with operating rooms. Operating rooms are class 10,000. So, so if you want to have surgery, this is probably a better place. So, wafers. Wafers are cool. These are what we manufacture on. They are pulled. They are actually a single crystal. Everybody think back to crystals and science and chemistry. If I were to take this is an ingot.
So, what is a crystal? Crystal. So, some object whose atoms are arranged in some ordered, highly ordered, repeating pattern. Chemistry. This is a good example. Yeah. Okay, also what time is it right now? What time does the Uniqlo close out? Closes at 7, yeah. Damn. I'm getting distracted right now. I just want to figure out what time this one store closes in DC. Seems like it's pretty early, so it's not great. This place closes at 9 though. Let's see. Tenleytown American University. How far is that? It's 0.8 miles. That's kind of far. Okay, so I think what I might do is probably, it's 6:42, I'm gonna get ready, pack up, and then head back home. But when I get back, I'll probably do a little bit more streaming for tonight, and I'll pick this up tomorrow as well. So thanks for tuning in, and there's a lot of stuff to think about here, right? So in this stream, we kind of dug a little bit deeper into the technical aspects of semiconductors and semiconductor manufacturing. There's really a lot of details here that combines physics, chemistry, electrical engineering, all into a single subject and field, which is the field of integrated circuits and semiconductors. So this is a really interesting video, though. I'm glad that I found it. I'm probably going to, let's see. I'm definitely going to need to put this here. Really good video from Ted Fernandez. So yeah, it seems like this is a really good video about how manufacturing modern computer chips works. Maybe, hopefully I could get to some of the later things here, but I'll leave it at that. And I think, so we had put down this guy named Jay Lathrop in our notes. So DRAM is also something important because Micron Technologies produces DRAM, and that's part of the coverage that I'm doing. I think DRAM was created back in the 1960s. What is a magnetic core? Magnetic core. Yeah, this is crazy. I think all of these are probably small transistors on this side. Man.
Let me give you 4 reasons why this is the smartest wallet you'll ever own. Hey, I'm Daniel, one of the founders of Ridge.
Words spoken into a radio telephone transmitter at Arlington were heard by engineers listening at the Eiffel Tower in Paris and also at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. 1920 brought the beginning of radio broadcasting, but a vacuum tube radio receiver was a real luxury.
This is cool.
Then, the next 10 years gave us talking motion pictures, transoceanic radio telephone service, television demonstrations. This is how my voice would sound over a 75-mile telephone line that has no amplifying device. Now, with a transistor amplifier in the line, my voice is amplified so that you can hear me distinctly. This, for example, will mean that in isolated farmhouses, far from central exchanges, the transistor, right in the telephone, will make it easier for the farmer to hear and be heard on his rural telephone. And transistors can replace many of the vacuum tubes used in providing long-distance telephone service. Because they are so tiny, transistors have made it possible to miniaturize many types of electronic equipment. This equipment requires less space and will cost less to maintain. Transistors may also be used in multi-channel telephony, which increases the number of calls that can be carried at the same time along telephone lines. When you dial direct from your town to a distant city, transistors in this route selector may be helping to mark out the pathway along which your call will go. Transistors may someday go under the sea, built right into underwater telephone cables. But transistors go well with lots of other industries too. Many manufacturers have been licensed to produce transistors and devise new applications. Through their efforts, you may be able to get music with a flick of your wrist from the so-called Dick Tracy radio. And with a portable television set, you may be able to enjoy video entertainment anywhere you go. For the military, the transistor opens up fantastic possibilities, most of them in too early a stage of development to be talked about. Transistors will take their place in the complex calculating machines that have often been called electronic brains because they enable man to save days, months, even years in solving mathematical problems. Of course, we cannot build a calculating machine as flexible as the human brain, but even a man-made computer designed to do hundreds of brain-like calculating jobs might need an Empire State Building to house it and a Niagara Falls to power and cool it if vacuum tubes were used in its construction. Substituting transistors for tubes, such a versatile machine could fit into a good-sized room, and power and cooling needs would be relatively low. With the transistor, man has gone far toward matching some of the capacity of the human brain. He has done it with imagination, with the inventiveness and teamwork of the Bell Telephone scientists who are looking forward to the age just beyond the age of electronics.
That's fine. That's fine. Old school AT, TNT.
It's hard to believe that Mint Mobile can get any better, but really, all it takes is a little imagination.
Oh, I am not ready for this.
Mint and my new film, If, are teaming up. How'd that happen?
Hi. Oh, God.
Sign up now and you'll get unlimited for $15 a month and...
Yeah, this is cool. Okay, so I think with that, probably going to end the stream here. Maybe when I come back, I'll actually write some more stuff down for the book itself, not just some of the technical stuff. Technical stuff, I mean, realistically, probably take me at least a few years to actually fully understand. I don't think it's something I can just kind of understand from the get-go, right? This is like years, decades worth of research and decades worth of research and probably thousands, hundreds, if not millions of really powerful minds coming together to really create this cool technology. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. Micron Technologies. I wonder, I think they have a plant, Virginia Fab. You know, it would be interesting. It would be really interesting to go visit this one day. See if it's possible to actually Micron Technologies, Virginia Fab Tour. can I search? So Micron Technologies, Virginia, LinkedIn. I have to go into my own page. So people, it seems like they do school visits. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to. Ooh. Interesting. So there also is this Financial Times student. Maryland. United States. No. Okay. That's unfortunate. Alright, yeah, I think that's good. I just found an article by Chris Miller that I take a little read later. But I think that's gonna be it for the stream. Thanks for tuning in. I had a lot of fun actually, trying to figure out some of the, at least dig a little bit deeper into the technicalities of how all this stuff works. So with that, probably gonna say goodbye here, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.